In 1998, the Players Club lit up the screen with sex, money, and betrayal. But what happened after the cameras stopped rolling was even more shocking. Fame brought fortune, but also heartbreak, scandal, and tragedy. Some stars rose to greatness, others vanished into darkness. You won't believe where they ended up. This is the untold truth behind the cast of the Players Club. Lisa Raye McCoy as Diamond when the role becomes reality. In 1998, Lisa Raye McCoy stunned audiences as Diamond, the fierce, desperate single mother stripping to survive in the Players Club. But what if that wasn't just acting? What if the pain we saw on screen was already bleeding through from real life? At 31, Lisa Raye's breakout role brought fame and admiration, but behind the scenes, her world was quietly crumbling. Her first marriage to NFL star Tony Martin disintegrated under jealousy and distance, but it was her second marriage, to Michael Missick, then Prime Minister of Turks and Caicos, that turned her life into a public soap opera. One day she was a first lady, the next she was in the middle of a corruption scandal, a broken marriage, and headlines that wouldn't stop coming. Lisa Raye would later admit she felt used, abandoned, emotionally stripped. It wasn't just a line, it was her truth. Fame gave her a platform, but not peace. Even as she starred in All of Us and launched fashion brands, the emotional damage lingered. Trust was hard. So was love, and being strong started to feel like a curse. Now at 58, Lisa Raye lives in Los Angeles, battle-tested and wiser. She mentors women, speaks on healing, and chooses her roles carefully. Diamond may have been her beginning, but Lisa Raye's real story is far more powerful and far more painful than any script could capture. Bernie Mac as Dollar Bill, the king of comedy who hit a silent war. In the Players Club, Bernie Mac was unforgettable as Dollar Bill, a slick, fast-talking strip club owner dodging danger with every breath. His energy was electric, his timing flawless. But behind the iconic performance was a man quietly fighting a war his audience never saw coming. At 40, Bernie was riding high. Beloved for his raw humor and fearless delivery, he would go on to star in The Bernie Mac Show, Ocean's 11, and more. But while the world laughed, Bernie's body was slowly breaking down. Diagnosed with sarcoidosis, an autoimmune disease, he battled constant fatigue, chronic pain, and a failing immune system. Yet he refused to show weakness. "I don't complain," he once said. "I entertain." Married to his high school sweetheart Rhonda since 1977, Bernie leaned on her as his strength quietly faded. Hospital stays became frequent, oxygen tanks, his quiet companions. He was a giant on stage, but a patient at home. He never stopped working, never stopped making people laugh, even as his own life was slipping through his fingers. Then, in August 2008, everything stopped. After a 3-week battle with pneumonia, Bernie Mac died at just 50 years old. The world lost a legend, his family lost a husband and father, and comedy lost one of its boldest voices. At the time of his death, his net worth was $15 million, but no dollar figure could ever measure the impact of a man who made millions laugh while hiding unimaginable pain. Charlie Murphy as Brooklyn, the comic who turned tragedy into punchlines. In The Players Club, Charlie Murphy lit up the screen as Brooklyn, a street-smart wisecracker who knew how to survive the chaos. But behind his sharp tongue and infectious laugh was a man carrying more pain than most could imagine. At 39, Charlie was still mostly known as Eddie Murphy's older brother, but unlike his siblings' meteoric rise, Charlie's path was slower, rougher, and far more personal. Determined to break out of the shadow, he carved his own lane in stand-up comedy, with brutal honesty as his weapon. His marriage to Tisha Taylor in 1997 brought rare peace, a deep and quiet love that anchored him, but fate dealt him a cruel blow. In 2009, Tisha died of cervical cancer. The loss devastated Charlie. He withdrew, emotionally gutted. And yet he returned to the mic, not to escape grief, but to wrestle with it. His pain became part of the act. On Chappelle's show, his iconic True Hollywood stories about Prince and Rick James became instant classics, masking deep heartache with hilarity. But behind the scenes, he was breaking down. Depression, fatigue, and exhaustion followed him on tour. In 2016, he was diagnosed with leukemia, but never told the public. Even as his body failed, he kept performing, kept making people laugh. Because for Charlie, comedy wasn't just a career, it was therapy, survival. He passed away on April 12, 2017, at just 57 years old. Quietly, bravely, still working until the end, net worth at death, $2.5 million. But Charlie Murphy left behind something far richer, proof that laughter can come from the darkest places and courage doesn't always shout. Jamie Foxx as Blue, the superstar who almost didn't survive. In the Players Club, Jamie Foxx played Blue, the smooth-talking DJ who brought rhythm and humor to the chaos. It was a small role, but behind that charm was a man about to explode into stardom. What no one saw coming was how close that same man would later come to losing everything. Jamie Foxx rose fast and hard. Stand-up comedy, hit music, an Oscar for Ray, blockbuster roles in Django Unchained and beyond. To the world, he was unstoppable. But fame never came without a cost. Behind the scenes, Foxx lived a life of extremes, intensely private relationships, rumored romances, public speculation, and legal drama over child support. Despite his success, he often admitted, "Fame gave me everything except peace." Then in 2023, the unthinkable happened. Foxx suffered a near-fatal stroke from a brain bleed and vanished from the public eye. For months, the internet was flooded with rumors. Was he alive? Paralyzed? Dying? When he finally returned, frail but smiling, he simply said, "I went to hell and back." Now, at 57, Jamie Foxx is still standing, rebuilding his life, hosting Beat Shazam with his daughter, and holding tighter to what really matters. His comeback isn't just physical, it's spiritual. Net worth, 2025, $170 million, proof that even legends bleed, but some come back stronger. Tommy Lister Jr. as XL, the giant who died fighting giants of his own. In the Players Club, Tommy Tiny Lister Jr. played XL, the towering enforcer whose menacing presence masked a gentle soul. But in real life, the man behind the glare was quietly fighting battles far more dangerous than anything on screen. Known to fans as Debo from Friday, Tiny became an icon of intimidation. But off-camera, his heart was far from hardened. Married to missionary Felicia Forbes, he leaned into faith. But life didn't get easier. In 2012, he was entangled in a mortgage fraud case that nearly sent him to prison. Though he avoided jail, the stress crushed him, financially, emotionally, physically. Behind the muscle, his health was deteriorating. Years of battling diabetes and hypertension took their toll. By 2020, during the peak of the pandemic, Tiny became gravely ill. On December 10th, he was found dead in his Los Angeles home. The cause? Heart disease worsened by years of untreated damage. He was just 62. Despite decades in film and TV, his net worth at death was only $100,000, a modest number for a man whose presence on screen was priceless. But his true legacy? A reminder that behind the toughest roles, some giants are quietly breaking. Ice Cube as Reggie, the rebel who built an empire. In the Players Club, Ice Cube stepped in front of the camera as Reggie, the streetwise menace who brought chaos and dark humor. But in real life, Cube was already a force much larger than the character he played. He wasn't just acting in someone else's story, he was busy writing his own legacy. At 29, Cube had already changed music forever with NWA challenged authority with Effing the Police, and launched his solo career with unflinching honesty. The Players Club, which he also directed, was just another move in a strategy far deeper than entertainment. It was about control, ownership, and truth. And unlike many stars who burn fast, Cube played the long game. Behind the tough image was a surprisingly stable home life. Married to Kimberly Woodruff since 1992, the couple weathered fame, temptation, and tabloid rumors together. While the world expected him to crash and burn like so many others, Cube stayed grounded. He credits Kimberly with saving him more than once. "She's my backbone," he said. But being a revolutionary has a cost. Cube faced political backlash, business betrayal, and the pressure to stay relevant across generations. Still, he never broke. From Friday to Straight Outta Compton, from rap to producing and launching the Big Three basketball league, Ice Cube defied the system and built one of his own. Now at 56, he's not just a rap legend or film mogul, he's a cultural icon, a blueprint for how to survive, evolve, and still stay real. Net worth, 2025, $160 million. But his true wealth? Influence that can't be bought. Monica Calhoun as Ebony, the quiet strength behind the saddest eyes. In the Players Club, Monica Calhoun broke hearts as Ebony, the wide-eyed dancer whose innocence was slowly crushed by the club's darkest corners. Her performance was raw, emotional, unforgettable. But what audiences didn't know was that Monica's real life carried just as much quiet heartbreak. Off-screen, Monica chose a different path from Hollywood's spotlight. In 2000, she became a mother to a son born blind. From that moment, her priorities shifted. Fame took a back seat to hospital visits, therapy sessions, and the unrelenting love of a mother. Roles became fewer but deeper, especially her haunting turn as Mia in the Best Man films, where she once again portrayed a woman quietly facing death. Art imitated life, and life, for Monica, was about devotion, not attention. She never married. She never chased the red carpet. Instead, she built a life rooted in care, humility, and emotional depth. Now at 54, Monica lives mostly out of the public eye, occasionally returning for roles that matter, roles that speak, not shout. Her story isn't loud, but it lingers, just like Ebony's final scene. Net worth, 2025, $5 million. Earned not by chasing fame, but by honoring what matters most. Anthony Johnson as Lil Man, the funny man no one saw falling. In the Players Club, A.J. Johnson brought laughter as Lil Man, the fast-talking hustler who lit up even the film's darkest moments. On screen, he was hilarious. Off screen, his life was far less funny. A.J. had the kind of comic energy that made him a cult icon, with memorable roles in Friday and House Party. But the pressure to always be on, to always be funny, hid a growing personal darkness. Behind the jokes was a man quietly battling alcoholism and losing. Married to Lexis Jones Mason, with whom he shared 3 daughters, AJ's family life was rocky. Fights, separation, strain. Alcohol slowly became both a coping mechanism and a curse. As roles dried up and income became unstable, his health and spirit declined. Even as he mentored younger comedians and stayed respected in the comedy scene, his body was breaking down. Years of heavy drinking had caused irreversible damage. Then came 2021 and COVID. AJ's already weakened body couldn't take the hit. He died on September 6, 2021, at age 55, from multi-organ failure. Net worth at death, $500,000. A small sum, but his legacy? A reminder that sometimes the ones who make us laugh the hardest are carrying the most pain. Terrence Howard as KC, the genius undone by his own storm. In the Players Club, Terrence Howard played KC, the slick hustler whose calm charm hid something dangerous. It was a perfect fit. Because in real life, Howard's greatest performances were often off-screen, inside courtrooms, marriages, and the chaos of his own mind. At 29, Howard was magnetic, a rising star with intelligence and edge. But that edge cut both ways. His first marriage ended in accusations of domestic abuse. They remarried, then divorced again. The pattern repeated with his second wife: lawsuits, restraining orders, claims of violence. Howard insisted he was misunderstood. But the headlines kept coming. Professionally, he soared, earning an Oscar nomination for Hustle and Flow, starring in Empire. But behind the brilliance was volatility. He was famously replaced in Iron Man after contract disputes. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder, Howard admitted his mood swung like wild weather, brilliant one moment, destructive the next. Now, 56, he lives mostly out of the spotlight, chasing eccentric scientific theories and working sporadically. He claims he's found the key to rewriting the laws of physics. Critics roll their eyes. But maybe that's just Terrence, always chasing something bigger, something no one else can see. Net worth, 2025, $5 million. A genius, a storm, a man who could have ruled Hollywood, if only he could outrun himself. John Amos as Officer Freeman, the father figure who carried real pain. In the Players Club, John Amos brought quiet authority as Officer Freeman, a steady presence in a world spinning out of control. But that same strength came from a life marked by battles few ever saw. By 59, John Amos was already a legend. His roles in Roots and Good Times had made him a symbol of pride and power in black storytelling. But off-screen, he fought his own wars. His first marriage in the 1960s to a white Jewish artist broke racial barriers and invited threats, judgment, and isolation. It ended in heartbreak, but also gave him 2 children. His second marriage crumbled under the pressures of fame and exhaustion. Still, Amos poured his truth into every role, demanding authenticity in a world that often silenced it. He became a mentor to young black actors, urging them to stand firm, to tell real stories. In later years, his health declined. Family conflict over his care spilled into public view in 2023, a painful chapter for a man who once stood for dignity. He died in Los Angeles on August 21, 2024, from heart failure at 84. Net worth at death, $300,000. Modest, yes, but his true wealth was in legacy. John Amos didn't chase fame. He fought for truth and left behind a story that mattered. Chrystale Wilson as Ronnie, the role that made her and tried to erase her. In the Players Club, Chrystale Wilson owned every scene as Ronnie, the seductive, cold-hearted dancer who was as unforgettable as she was feared. It was her breakout role, and it nearly boxed her in forever. At 27, Chrystale became the face of bold, dangerous sexuality in black cinema. But while the role made her famous, it also became a shadow she couldn't outrun. Casting directors saw Ronnie, not Chrystale. Audiences loved the villain, but few asked about the woman behind her. She was typecast, misunderstood, and underestimated. But Chrystale refused to be a footnote in her own story. She pivoted, produced her own projects, became the first black woman in Atlanta to create a unionized indie film group. Her film, A Kudzu Christmas, made history as the first urban holiday movie sold nationwide. She worked behind the camera on hits like Think Like a Man and Creed, slowly building a new identity, not just as an actress, but a creator. Now 54, Chrystale lives between Los Angeles and Atlanta, mentoring young women in film, appearing at festivals, and still choosing roles that defy stereotypes. Ronnie may have been loud and ruthless, but Chrystale's real power is quiet, determined reinvention. Net worth 2025, $1 million, earned not just from acting, but from fighting for the right to be more than one unforgettable role. Adele Givens as Trix, the queen of comedy who turned pain into punchlines. In The Players Club, Adele Givens stole scenes as Trix, the sharp-tongued, no-nonsense comic relief who could make you laugh even through the darkness. But behind the fearless jokes was a woman who fought every step to earn her spot. Rising from Chicago's gritty comedy scene in the late 80s, Adele battled sexism, racism, and the constant pressure to tone herself down. She didn't. Instead, she leaned in, louder, bolder, unapologetically raw. Her big break came with Queens of Comedy in 2001, where she stood tall alongside Monique and Somor, owning the stage with brutal honesty and electric timing. But comedy comes with a cost. Endless touring wore on her relationships. The laughter she gave others didn't always echo back when the lights went out. "I've made a room roar and gone back to a hotel feeling invisible," she once said. Still, she endured. From Beauty Shop to the Parkers, Adele kept showing up, reminding the world that funny women aren't sidekicks, they're stars. And today, at 65, she's still touring, still slaying stages, and mentoring a new generation of women who refuse to be silenced. Net worth, 2025, $1.5 million, a legacy not built on punchlines, but on power, presence, and the right to be loud.